We've talked a lot about towns in Atchison County, Missouri and southwestern Iowa as they rebuild after the devastating floods in March. But it's also affected southeast Nebraska. Peru, Nebraska is a town of about 900 people. Here are some of the stories on how they're recovering from the destruction. Enjoy. Welcome to Peru, Nebraska. As you can see behind me, we're on a gorgeous lake. The only thing, none of this water should be here. In fact, it's been 6 months since the flooding hit this area, and the water in Peru still has gone nowhere.
People don't understand that we're still underwater here. They don't understand what we're going through.
A half a year is a long time.
We're in a holding pattern here in Peru.
Not long enough to get rid of the water in Peru.
The floodwaters have receded and recovery has begun. We can't start rebuilding and recovering here until the water goes down, which won't happen for another several months.
State Senator Julie Slama is from Peru. She says 8,000 acres of farmable land are still underwater.
This is the most valuable farmland in our part of the state, that rich, fertile, river bottom land.
Darren Reeves is the mayor here.
You know, everybody else is starting to rebuild. We're not. We're not even to that point where we can rebuild. That's the frustrating part.
Peru's home to under 1,000, but more than doubles in size when Peru State College is back in session.
As you went down the hill and saw the amount of water that was out there, it looked like one of the Great Lakes.
You can't even see anything else but the water, and it's like, will it ever go away? Like, I can't even really imagine it without it now.
Homes are destroyed. A 3-month water advisory was just lifted. Peru is not out of the rough yet.
The big key in Peru is fighting to get our levee repaired.
What Senator Slama wants, an exception in the Corps of Engineers manual to permit the levee being fixed.
The funds are there to fix the levee and get rid of this water. This flood, this levee's failure, was not caused by the failure to fill out a form. It was caused by unprecedented flows down the Missouri River in March of 2019.
Reporting in Peru, Nebraska, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now. As I talked about, the city still has 8,000 acres of farmable land underwater. The flooding affected more than just unusable land. Here's more from Peru.
This has been here for close to 6 months.
This property has a new tenant, floodwater.
So this property over here that's fenced in, that's half underwater, that's where all my animals were. I had goats, chickens, a miniature horse.
Mayor Darren Reeves owns the land next door. He's no stranger to the area.
It's very tough, especially knowing everybody. I've sandbagged this house multiple times and protected it, as well as the water treatment plant.
The water treatment plant provided water for the whole town.
It had probably 15 feet of water in it, so everything electrical in there is ruined. Everything has to be replaced.
Running off a temporary facility, Peru was on a boil advisory from May 16th until August 12th, hauling in 8 to 14 semi-loads a day from the nearby town of Auburn.
We're surrounded by water here, but you can't drink any of it.
And the water advisory made its way across town to Peru State College, where students were drinking from bottled water, sometimes eating lunch off paper plates, and on reduced shower times from May until mid-August.
We asked them to think about ways to reduce their use of water, and they cut their water use by almost a third.
Community members donated more than 10,000 bottles of water this spring. While the advisory is done, the school is still trying to limit water.
I think that was a good thing for all of us to realize in general, because like of how much we use it and then like how much we wasted.
We have plenty of water from the city, but not plenty of water to waste.
The temporary plant can last 3 years. A new one isn't cheap.
Initial reports over $3 million.
Plans are underway, but there's still more work to be done in Peru.
They're well on their way to a plan. They're working with FEMA officials. We may have the best water system we've ever had when this is all done.
And we've heard how the flooding in Peru, Nebraska has impacted land and infrastructure, but it's also impacted the people. I wanted to share the story of one woman's determination to get a college education during one of the toughest times in her life. Welcome to Peru State College, a campus of about 2,500 students in the heart of Peru, Nebraska.
This is a community, and it really is, in all intents and purposes, friends and family go to school here.
Sarah Vance is not your typical student. The mom of 2 came back to get her teaching degree, driving an hour for class each time from Shenandoah.
I want to take science and make it more hands-on.
Everything changed for her when flooding hit Peru.
I was getting ready to come to class, and my GPS says it's going to take almost 4 hours to get to school, one way.
And her commute went from 20 to 25 minutes to several hours, and it just wasn't workable for her.
Sarah and her family had a choice: leave school with 5 weeks left in the semester or find another option.
I chose school. I chose to continue with this dream.
We made housing available on campus immediately, and we weren't going to charge people.
I actually would pack up, and for 5 days out of a week, I would live at Peru in the dorms for the first time in my life. I've never stayed in a dorm.
The mom of a 19 and 4-year-old was now a new mom.
It was kind of neat. They called me the dorm mom because whenever they needed Band-Aids that had smiley faces on them, they'd come to me.
But the choice took its toll back home.
That was probably the hardest part. I'd call him at night and he wouldn't want to talk to me because he was so mad at me. And that broke my heart.
Fast forward to now, and life at Peru State College is getting back to normal.
We've got our largest freshman class in over 30 years. Things are going really well.
Sarah's back living at home and is one step closer to receiving her degree. Reporting in Peru, Nebraska, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now. And Sarah Vance is on track to graduate in 2021. She wants to teach science to 9th and 10th grade students and wants to focus on inclusive classrooms that assist both special ed and traditional learners. And so far, we've brought you stories on how the town of Peru is recovering, how the townspeople are getting water, and its impact to students at the local college. Here's the last part in this series about the town of under 900 in Nemaha County. Amy Mincer is busy at work at Peru State. Life is getting back to normal for her.
It was a tough 4.5 months. Yeah, it was really hard.
Overnight, Mincer's daily commute went from 35 minutes to 2 hours. She ended up moving into the dorms for the rest of the semester.
It made it bearable for me, even though living in a dorm doesn't sound all the greatest. It was a good solution to my problem.
The problems at Peru State reached more than just housing.
Our water was shut off, and we needed to close campus for 2 days so that the city could come up with a way to bring water back to campus.
And we were using it as fast as we were bringing it in.
The water's fixed, but 6 months later, Peru is still underwater.
None of the water you see around here is supposed to be here. 6 months in, we're still in the midst of the natural disaster. Right now, we're trying to get back on our feet as a community. We've also got some big assets in Peru. Peru is a critical component of southeast Nebraska.
The water levels have stayed consistent for the last several months. The water's remained because it has nowhere to go.
People should care about a town of 860 people because these are people. These are Nebraskans.
So after all this, what's next for this small town in southeast Nebraska? Well, it starts by getting rid of this water and rebuilding this levee here in Peru. Reporting in Peru, Nebraska, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now. The town of Peru still has much more work to do to get rid of the water. We'll continue to tell the story of those in Nebraska affected by our flooding. I'm Phil Bergman. Thanks again for watching our series on flooding in Peru, Nebraska.